This is a Guide Your Light Network production, creating podcasts with purpose. Hey you, welcome back to the podcast. Just before we jump in, I wanted to let you know about something exciting I have been working on. As you might know, I'm incredibly passionate about helping people to find and share their voice, especially if their voice is one that aims to create positive change in others' lives. So I've been working intentionally to bring that mission to life, and I have launched a podcast network with purpose. It is called the Guide Your Light Network that features podcasts and voices that inspire, educate, and transform listeners. And we have a library of podcasts that are part of our network that truly embody that mission, and we are looking for more. If this has sparked interest in you and you are ready to start exploring speaking and using your voice in this way, I'd love for you to check it out. If you have something important to say and don't know where to start to bring that to life, we can also help to hold your hand to craft your authentic message through our Guide Your Light sessions, where you can get super clear on your intention, messaging, and structure needed to launch a podcast of your own that is authentically you. Just head over to guideyourlightnetwork.com to find out more.
If you keep comparing yourself to other people, you will never be happy.
I've yet to find anything the mortal body can experience that the mortal soul can't love. I have yet to find anything that somebody's been through that can't be turned into a fuel of opportunity.
I say we never arrive at anything. I'm never going to arrive and say, I am now the most incredible leader of all time. We are on this journey of learning. And as we grow, we learn.
Anybody here listening has taken psychedelics will know that there is no control. And the whole point is letting go and leaning in. And that's scary. But that's the scary is where the healing happens.
It's not just about food. We're still not seeing results because there's a shift of mindset that needs to happen.
You get knocked down, you got to get back up. And so part of that process is having a broken heart. You need to talk about feelings. But generally, most men, if they're not having a broken heart, they don't need to talk about feelings. And this is where psychology has misled us.
Hey everybody, I'm Maritza Barone, and this is the Things You Can't Unhear podcast. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you heard or read or were told something that you simply could not unhear? Something that caused you to make positive changes so that you could become the best version of yourself? Well, we share this show with access to inspiring and empowering humans who will motivate you to become the happiest, healthiest, kindest, and most compassionate you. Sit back, settle in, and let this be the day you hear something that simply cannot be unheard. Hello, welcome back to the show. Now, if you are someone who is curious about personal development, consciousness, or feel like there is something more for you, or simply just want to live a happier existence, you will get a lot out of this episode. I welcomed the incredible Dr. Dain Heer to the show. He's an author, changemaker, speaker, and the co-creator of Access Consciousness, one of the world's largest personal development companies practiced in 176 countries. For more than 20 years, Dain has traveled the world sharing his unique insights on happiness, relationships, getting over the yuck, which many of us face, and the stuck, and everything in between. For years, Dr. Dain Heer searched for the answer to his own pain and unhappiness and unworthiness, trying modality after modality, as many of us do, until he found Access Consciousness when he was at the point of no return. This one session turned his life around completely, and he tells us how he walked out of that session with a completely new perspective on life. I had to find out more. He has since taken Access Consciousness to the world to create awareness, healing, meaning into countless lives. In this chat, we discuss ways in which we can create change quickly and find the support we need to create that positive change in our lives. We talk about some questions we can ask ourselves if we are in a situation that we want to change, and how we can avoid living in a constant state of want, and so much more. I can't wait to hear what you think of this episode. Let me know. Let's keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram at Maritza_Barone or on the Things You Can't Unhear page. And please leave us a rating and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so that other people can find and hear this podcast as well. And of course, please share it to anyone that you think will benefit from hearing it.
Do you know why Miss Piggy can't count to 69? I'm sorry, why she can't count to 100?
Why?
Because every time she gets to 69, she gets a little frog in her throat. You ask, you receive, and sometimes that's not the best thing for either one of us.
I love it. Well, this is the beginning of our chat. I was about to welcome Dr. Dain Heer to the Things You Can't Unhear podcast, but that's exactly how we're going to start it, because I think it sets the tone and the energy of who you are. I really love your energy. I've been listening to so much of your work over the last couple of days and getting to know what you do, and you've got this lightness about you that I absolutely love.
Thank you so much. And if anybody is watching, I just want to say I did not know I had skulls on my shirt. This is a new shirt. I saw the colors. I went, let's go for those colors. And then I saw skulls when we started recording.
Yeah, I did. I complimented you on your shirt. And then I too noticed that they were skulls. And so what we've come to the conclusion of is that we're leaving the old us behind and stepping into our new selves.
Brilliant. Yes.
Let's
do that.
So let's talk a little bit about personal development. You are the personal development king. You have written books, you've got podcasts, you've got videos, you've got communities. It's endless work that you've been working on for over 2 decades, and it's growing and evolving day by day. I am very much interested in personal development as well. It's something that for a shorter period of time, I've just been immersed into and so curious about. But I want to ask the question, and perhaps start here, is why do you think that people, in your opinion, get into personal development and start the curiosity around it?
Well, from my perspective, it's because people have a sense that there has to be more. And they many times have tried all of the normal methods of getting there, whether it's getting happy or getting a sense of being more successful. And I think there's a lot of times where people think, oh, if I just get more money, if I get my relationship right, if I get my business right or my job right, then I'll be happy. And they get those things and they're still not happy. And so there's this desire for more that people have. And what it requires of them is, rather than function from the conclusions that they've been functioning from about what will make them happy, a lot of things that a lot of us have bought growing up, we're taught if you do this and this and this, you'll be happy. Except we were taught that by people who usually weren't happy, which is really funny to me. And so there's this desire for more and an awareness in their world that it should be possible. And I think that's what sets them on the journey. And
I think you're right.
And sorry, I apologize. My ADHD kicked in and I had another thing to say. Some people also will be experiencing, pain and suffering of one form or another, whether it's physical, emotional, or another form of that. And sometimes it's a desire to get out of that also that creates a search for more.
I heard a meditation teacher say once that we live in a constant state of want. So you touched on that before in terms of we want something, we achieve it or we receive it, and then we're still not happy. And then we want something else. And then we get that and we're still not happy. And it just is this constant cycle of wanting and then not sitting in that happiness or, that gratitude for very long once we get it. And so, what's your thoughts on that? Do you feel as though that's something that, how can we stop doing, and how can we become more present in our lives so that we're not constantly wanting more and actually being happy with where we're at?
Well, so a couple of things on that. I have a lot to say on this subject. The first is the original meaning of want is to lack. So when someone says, I want this, like if you meet people who have the lives they desire and who are moderately successful, they will very seldom use the word want. they will say, I'm going to have this. I'm going to create this. I just did this. I just bought this. I just created this. And so for anybody who desires something more, eliminate the word want from your vocabulary when referring to the more you desire, because what you're really saying is, I lack of this. So when you say, I want more money, you're saying, I lack of having more money, which our point of view creates our reality. Reality does not create our point of view. And your underlying point of view when you say, I want this, is that I lack of it. So that is a great awareness to have. And to your point, that's exactly what people tend to do, is they're in a continuous state of lack, because what they're really lacking is access to their very being. They're really lacking access to what they truly are and the willingness and ability to choose according to what's true for them and what would be fulfilling to them. Now, certain people do that because they have the point of view that if they just choose for them, they're going to be arrogant, they're going to be selfish, except in actuality, if you've ever had one of those moments where it felt like everything you desired was provided for, you don't become arrogant and selfish, you become humble and grateful. And in contrast to what a lot of people believe about if they got what they really desired, they would be terrible people. In actuality, what happens is that's when you have the space. When your batteries are full, you have much more ease contributing to others. And so, but this idea of, see, I have the perspective that you can be extremely grateful for what you have, for what you've created, for what you've changed, for what you've chosen, for the people in your life, for your entire life, and still desire more. See, for me, that's the only thing that really works. And for a lot of the people I work with around the world, same thing. They come in believing it's an either or. I can either desire more, or I can be happy with what I have. I said, well, why don't you be happy and grateful for what you have and what you've created, and realize you'll always desire more, because that's our nature, is desiring more. That's part of the greatness of us. Let's not cut that off, so that we can and simultaneously, let's have gratitude for what we have and acknowledge how wonderful it is, and also recognize we would like more. Why wouldn't we? Why shouldn't we? We are infinite beings living on a beautiful planet of abundant resources. Why should we limit ourselves in what we can choose, as long as it's honoring of us and in integrity with us and honoring of others?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Dain, when you said simultaneously feeling the gratitude for what we already have. And that's the missing link I think a lot of us miss, is that we don't let ourselves bask in the glory of what we had wanted and now we already have. We're already just moving on to the other thing without feeling that gratitude and sitting in with that. And honoring ourselves for bringing it into our lives in whatever way it happened. So I love that you brought that simultaneous sort of mindset in. And yes, we are human beings. We do always want more or strive for new experiences or adventures or opportunities. So yeah, thank you for answering that question perfectly, because it really helped me in my mindset.
I'm so glad. And I want to speak to what you just said, which is also that most people believe that if they get this and this and this that they don't already have, then they'll be happy. They don't realize that the secret is to be happy now, to be grateful now. And then what stems from that is more to be happy and more to be grateful for.
I was sitting in an ice bath this morning for 2.5 minutes.
As you do.
As you do. A friend actually has moved. He's going to travel in his caravan and he's given us his ice bath. So we put it in the garage, and every morning I'm challenging myself to do 2 or 3 minutes in the ice bath and get out of my comfort zone. And it's getting easier. I must say, I'm one of those people who despises the cold, but it is, I got in this morning and I was thinking, this is not that difficult anymore. So, and then I moved out and I went and sat in the sun, and the sun was just, hitting me on my forehead. And I felt so grateful in that moment. There was nothing else. It was just a moment of pure gratitude for being alive, sitting there in the sun, looking at the palm trees. I just felt so present right then and there. And those moments, unfortunately for so many of us, are so rare. just those moments of stillness and nothingness and gratitude. And it's a
Yes.
shame, isn't it?
Well, it is. And it's interesting because so the thing that I said that I've learned that our point of view creates our reality. And it's our underlying point of view that creates what shows up. You know, like if you'll see two people experience a very similar thing, and one person is angry and, frustrated about it, and the other person is like, well, it happened, so I guess we're going to deal with it. It's like you see the second person always having more ease dealing with it as you move forward. And so one of our points of view that we have is, in order to have and be that presence, we need to shut out everything else, and we need to simply exist and breathe. And well, there's definitely a place for that. But what about us being able to be that in the living of our lives, to be that present as you were after that, which is such a beautiful example of it. People can relate to, but what about being able to be that way as you're having business meetings, as you're doing interviews, as you're talking on the phone? There's this space of presence that can be with everything. And we've just never been shown. We've never had anybody take us by the hand and say, hey, number one, you're valuable. Number two, you're a gift. And number three, you can be present with everything. You don't have to avoid any of it. And here's a different space, a different way of being in the world. And that's what I'm interested in, is people being able to have this as they live their lives, because we don't have enough time to not live our lives, to get present, to then when we go to live our lives, somehow be present in our lives. But if you know what I mean?
I do. It's the great unlearning at the moment, isn't it? It's unlearning
Truly.
everything, and those habits and those beliefs that we've accumulated over time, to just scale back and slow down. But for people who are listening and going, yes, there are some changes in my life that I'm not 100% happy. I'm not thriving the way that I want to be. That I do want to make some shifts. What are some really good questions that we can actually ask ourselves if we're in a situation that we want to change?
So many. So I will just fire a few off, and people can take whatever they want. But I also want to acknowledge that there is a gift in being a dissatisfied dreamer. A dreamer that desires more and is willing to be like, I'm present, but I want more. So first is, what else is possible that I've never considered? What if I were truly creating my life today? What would I choose right away? And then get the sense of, if I could have anything as my life in the next, say, 5 years, what would it be? And I'll tell you why in just a moment, but get the sense of having ease with money, get the sense of having great friendships and relationships, get the sense of liking your body, because that's a vital element. Get the sense of not trying to force your body into things that it doesn't seem to want to do. Get the sense of having ease, being able to create it the way you would like it to. Get the sense also of having a sense of presence and space in your life, and gratitude for your life, and loving looking at the person who's looking back at you from the mirror. And if you just get the sense of all of those things, if you be with that for just a second, and neuroscience is talking now, if you're with it for like 14 seconds and then 21 seconds, it does something different with our brains. But what I found, if you just get a moment of that and just bask in it for a moment, and the reason I say 5 years, and the reason I'm going about it this way, which is not about writing a list, it's not about figuring it out with your head, it's about disengaging your mind and accessing your being, which is where all the magic lives and all the miracles live, and where ask and you shall receive lives. Because we don't acknowledge it, but the way we actually create our lives and everything is ask and you shall receive, which is funny because my point of view is they put it in the Bible so nobody would read it and believe it. So anyway, that's a story for another time. And so I'm joking, of course, or am I? So get the sense of having that. And because what we do is we create energetically, and nobody's ever taught us this. Like if you think of one of those days where you were just on cloud 9 and you have a conversation with somebody where before you would have been upset or resistant, and it just flows with ease. You're driving and there's traffic and you're like, I don't care, I'm having a great day. And you get there faster. It's like the universe lines up the miracles for you on a day like that. Well, that's because we're being more of us. See, when we're truly being us, we have a sense of lightness, and we have a sense of lightness with everything. And so what's true for us is light. What's alive for us is heavy. What's true for us has that sense of expansiveness. What's light has a sense of like yuck, stuck, and sort of cranky, crunchy. So when we get that sense of that, what we're actually doing is we're tapping into our awareness of the way it would be for us to have our life be transformed into what we're asking for. In this case, what I just talked about, and I know probably a lot of people, their brains are already disappearing. You know, you're probably hearing right now, blah, 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 blah. But that's actually the nature of it, because our mind cannot track that energetic transaction, if you will. It can't track that energetic wave that far into the future. So it has to give up. Now, here's the beauty. My point of view is, if you're thinking, you're stinking. In other words, we have us, the being that is miraculous and highly creative, that is totally grateful, that is generative, that is able to create anything. And then you have your mind, and what's its job? To tell you everything you can't do. There's a little bit of it that is about telling you what is possible, but that actually comes from your being. So what we're doing in tapping into that and asking for 5 years in the future is getting a sense of the way we would like our lives to be if we were the ones creating it. And our mind can't fathom 5 years in the future. So what happens is we actually tap into what we would like as our life, and we actually start creating it now. It doesn't take 5 years to get there. We start seeing things shift in our life, like in this moment and tomorrow and the next few weeks, as we acknowledge that we would like that. And then the next part is ask, say, okay, consciousness, spirit, universe, God, whatever it is for you, whatever it is you know that will contribute to you, please help. I'd like this as my life, and I am willing to do anything. I'm willing to be anything. I'm willing to change anything. I'm willing to lose anything. I'm willing to gain anything in order to have this, as long as it's in integrity with my being. And making that request, it does two things. One, it starts actualizing that, because our ask is actually creative. And most of us, you know, we have never been taught that. So our ask for something different is the beginning of its creation. That's number one. And that, by the way, is quantum physics, kids, but you got to study it to figure that shit out. Number two, what it does is it starts that creation. But the other thing that it does is, if you get a sense of that ball of energy, that totality of energy, anything that feels like that energy, do it. If you get an offer to go on a trip or go to coffee with somebody or get a job or anything that feels like that energy, do it, because that's the universe saying, hey, this is going to lead you closer to this. I know you can't figure it out with your mind, but I don't listen to your mind. I am the universe. So here, let me contribute to you. So it's one of the ways of, you know, given your question was, people want to change their lives, how do they do it? Well, I know I gave a couple of questions, and then this presented itself to talk about, which kind of surprised me, actually, because it seems like for some people it might be a deep dive, but I don't think it is. I think it's something that we all know, but we sort of gave it up when we were kids because we didn't see it being very successful.
It's definitely successful. That clarity piece of where you're wanting to go, to visualize and feel what that would look like and what that would be like in your life. I did it recently with my career and my business that I launched, and my coach at the time helped me to piece together this incredible visualization meditation of 5 years in the future. And we recorded it, and I listened to it every single day for 30 days. And literally the pieces of that puzzle to get there just started falling into place. And it just, like, the difficulty around it started melting, because I could see where I was going. Before doing that piece, that clarity piece, I just felt like it was all too hard to get to this destination that I wasn't even clear of where I was supposed to be going. When you've got the destination in mind, it is so damn powerful. So I really relate to that. But also, like you said, becoming a creator of our lives rather than reacting to what is thrown at us day to day, and being, you know, co-create, be part of what's about to happen, rather than just sitting there and going, let's just see what happens, hey?
Yeah, exactly.
Now, people want to change quickly. So this is where I want to bring in the conversation about access consciousness, because you talk about access consciousness as helping people to change in a more, fast-paced way, rather than, personal development and change can be long, drawn out, painful process. And
Yes.
people sort of might back away from that because they don't want to feel it. They don't want to do the work. They know it's going to hurt. What do you have to say about that? What do you have to say about people who want to find change quickly rather than these long drawn out processes? Because I'm sure many, both of us have tried 50 therapists and modalities and practitioners along the way.
True story. And that was one of the things that got me to a place where I wanted to end my life 23 years ago, was that I had done so many of these things and they were long and drawn out and they weren't changing my world. And I was like, okay, either I find something that really does, or I'm out of here. I was just asking to be happy, and have more ease with money. And then I had a session of access consciousness. I had something called access consciousness bars. And I went into it depressed and suicidal. And I came out of it an hour and 15 minutes later, literally with a gratitude for being alive that I had not had since I was a kid. And I was like, whoa, if it can change this fast, I'm in, let's go. And so here I am. So I'm a big fan of quick change, but I also realize that there's so many things that promise, oh, we'll change this in 10 seconds. And no, that's not the way it works. You got to be willing to do the work, but the work should produce really dynamic results. So it's like we got to have both. We seem to live in this world where we're trying to have one or the other, believe there's only one or the other possible. But if you're willing to do the work, and the work is not necessarily, the work of this is getting more conscious. And consciousness is where you have total awareness of everything. We actually have a definition of consciousness and access, which is where everything exists and nothing is judged. And that's simple. So it's about, and then there's unconsciousness, which is where you make yourself unaware. And then there's anti-consciousness, which is where you go against your awareness to choose something for some other reason. And so to the extent that we can change the unconsciousness and the anti-consciousness we've chosen, our lives show up with a lot of ease. So one of the first tools that you can use, which sounds deceptively simple, is a phrase which is, all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening. All of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. And what it does is, if you've ever done affirmations, I used to do affirmations and they would feel like they worked for a while, and then it felt like the exact opposite would occur. And that was the idea of an affirmation, is trying to avoid some part to try to create another part. I'm healthy, wealthy, and wise is trying to overcome your point of view that I'm sick, I'm poor, and I'm stupid, So your real point of view will eventually show up. And so what this is all of life comes to me with ease and joy and glory. In other words, the good stuff and the great stuff comes with ease. The crap, the yuck, the stuck comes with ease and moves through with ease. And then joy, which is wonderful. And then glory, which is exuberant expression and abundance. That's the actual meaning of glory. So 10 times in the morning, 10 times in the evening, it starts to shift the way your life shows up, because you start to be willing to allow all of life to show up. Because one of the biggest things that sticks us, as we've touched on, is the attempt to avoid the bad things and have only the good things. And that's a fundamental point of view that most of us have grown up with, as though that will create only the good things happening. But really, being an allowance of, which is where everything is an interesting point of view, being an allowance of the good, the bad, and the ugly as it shows up is the only thing that gives you choice, because it's the only space and the only place where you don't have to avoid. So these are just a couple of the things. And we have another thing in Access called the clearing statement. And it takes about 20 minutes to explain. So I'm not sure I want to explain it, but there are some easy ways that you can, and this is one of the biggest elements of what I use and what we use in classes and in sessions with people, and we ask people to use on their own, which is where the short form for it is POC and POD. And the way it works is, you know how you'll be living your life, everything is fine, and then something weird comes up and it's like, man, what the heck? Well, you can POC and POD it, POC and POD. It stands for going back to the point of creation of wherever you chose to make this thing relevant, wherever you came out of the consciousness of you, which would be an allowance of it, which is where it's just an interesting point of view, and attach some significance to it, presumed a reality about it that's now allowing it to stick you. And so that's the short form from the clearing statement. You can just go, okay, POC and POD all that stuff. And it's been used enough by millions of people around the world at this point to where just saying that can start to have an effect. Now, of course, if you learn the clearing statement and you use it in other ways on other things, it can be a lot more effective because you're actually using it consciously with what's coming up. But it's another tool to change things in the moment, because I'm a big fan of being able to change things in the trenches of life. That's where we need the change to occur. You know, it's one thing to be able to have all kinds of things build up and then take a weekend and offload them, but then you're back in your life on Monday. So what are you going to do now? You know, this is like ongoing. Let's take the weeds, you know, the jungle of yuck that we're walking through and sort of thorns in that, and start trimming them down to where it's more like the stubble on a wheat field, and we can just walk right through it. And that's what I see happen with these tools.
I want to learn all about these tools and access consciousness, because it is actually quite new to me. I've done some research and I'm learning all about it. And I literally looked up a clinic here on the Sunshine Coast so I could go and book myself in, because it sounds intriguing. But how does it work? So in terms of, I want to compare it to Reiki, for example, whereas we're bringing energy in with Reiki, right? With access consciousness, we're, I think, clearing energy. Is that, or removing energy?
Oh, that's well, so let me say this. Having had Reiki, having been a Reiki practitioner, I loved Reiki. Okay. And so that sense, you know, that sense of peace and space that Reiki gives you. And then sometimes you actually be able to change a specific thing, which is really cool. There's a sense of that, but imagine living as that. In other words, it's not just during the session, and it's not just for an hour after, maybe a day or a few hours after. It's what you start to live. So if you can imagine being in the middle of a Reiki session and, you know, your mother calls and she's, whether you get along with her well or not, you know, she's got a problem, something's going on, and you're like, oh, cool. Yeah. Hey, I'm Reiki. How you doing? No problem, Mom. I got this, you know. It's kind of like that, but it also is being even more present. So you're not spaced out, you're not checked out, you're being space and you're being the presence. And so we have probably 8,000 tools in Access. We have been researching, and this has been around for the last 30 years. My business partner, Gary Douglas, started it a little over 30 years ago now. I came along 23 years ago now. So, and our functional point of view was we had, you know, this body of work, and then somebody would come and say, hey, can you help us with something on relationship? And we'd be like, I don't know, let's find out. We would start asking questions. We start asking them questions, and then we would see what was lighter, what was heavier. And then along with this clearing statement, so the clearing statement allows you to change anything specifically. So for example, with the clearing statement, and it sounds like gobbledygook, but like, for example, you could do something like, everything that doesn't allow me to perceive how beautiful I am and that I'm actually a gift, destroy and uncreate it. And the destroy is taking the structure, because our limitations, they kind of put us in a little cell of our own making, you know? And so the destroy is, let's destroy the structure of limitation that we've made real, because we're the only ones who have the power to make it real. Let's destroy that and let's uncreate, meaning instead of putting our creative energy into maintaining these walls, because anything that's not real, we have to keep feeding it energy in order to maintain it. And judgment and limitation is not real. We create it with our points of view. So destroy and uncreate, meaning destroy the wall, take your creative energy out of it so you actually have it to create your life. And so you could ask a simple question like, everything that doesn't allow me to see how beautiful I am and to know that I'm a gift, destroy and uncreate it. And then you could just do POC and POD all that. Or the long form of the clearing statement, if you're like me and you have OCD, along with ADHD, along with the soupçon of autism, then you'll want to run the whole thing, which is right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all 9 shorts, boys, poveds, and beyonds, which, as I said, sounds like gobbledygook. But when people start to do it, they start to notice things just start to get lighter. And you do it, and you can do it on anything. Like, okay, everything that makes me stress about money right now, destroy and uncreate it, POC and POD. Or everything that makes me stress about money right now, destroy and uncreate it. Right and wrong, good and bad, POD and POC, all 9 shorts, boys, poveds, and beyonds. And on and on and on. And you can do it so quickly that what starts to happen is you start to have this sense of things getting lighter in the moment. And this is just one of many, 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 many tools. But that particular tool is about, quote unquote, taking away a limitation or dissolving a solidity. And sometimes those solidities are our feelings, our thoughts, our emotions, our yuck stuck in what the F places in our life, you know, those things. But also it can be used for creation, where you ask for something and then you use it to undo what's in the way. And it's based on the idea that we are infinite beings. And, you know, and what I always used to look at was, wouldn't an infinite being at least be able to pay rent and be happy? You know, this is before access. And this is the first thing I've ever seen or done after having done a lot of things that actually not only acknowledges that we're infinite beings, but actually it's within all of it that these things are possible because of the being you already are. And so the limitations that we impose are things that we impose on top of us, or however you look at it. They're things that we impose on our very being that we then buy the point of view about, and then we create it as our reality because we bought the point of view that it must be real. And these are the things that we change. And what you start to get is a sense of space and a sense of what is actually real and true for you.
So interesting. So interesting. And so much in that. For the practical people listening, if they were to visualize what an access consciousness session, is it a session, would you call it, where you go in and have a practitioner help you with an access consciousness session? What does that look like? How long does it go for? What is actually done during the sessions?
Great questions. And it depends. So one form of that might be you call up somebody and they say, hey, what would you like? You know, in my first session, I said, what do you do? Because I was cranky and I was frustrated. And she said, probably a good place to start would be with this thing called access consciousness bars. And I said, what's that? She said, well, there's these 32 points on the head, and I'm just going to lightly touch them. And then I'm going to move to different ones. And at the worst, you'll feel like you had a good massage. At the best, your whole life will change. And in the back of my head, I was like, my whole life better change or I'm killing myself. What do I have to lose? Let's do it. Guess what? My whole life changed. Now, not everybody has that experience. But once again, so with the access consciousness bars, what that does, and we've done studies, what are those people called? Neuroscientists, brainwave studies. And what we found is that it increases the brainwave activity for gratitude, sense of connection with the earth, and creativity simultaneously, and relaxation, and decreases the brainwaves associated with judgment and separation. But also in one of the studies we did, we found it decreases anxiety, stress, and depression, an average of 87%. So what happens is you lie down on the table, somebody puts their hands on your head in one place and then they move to another and another and another. And an hour and 15 minutes later, an hour later, depending on what you arrange with the person who's doing it, you're done. And it really is, it's like at the worst, you usually feel like you had a good massage. You and your body are more relaxed. There are fewer thoughts in your head. You have a sense of space, tend to have a sense of more gratitude, more connection with your body and other people. And then, you get smacked on the butt and you go live your life. Well, you don't get smacked on the butt. That's probably inappropriate at this point in this world, but you get the idea. Don't let the doorknob hit you on the butt as you go live your life. Okay. And then you might want to go back and do that again. Like for me, if I can get my bars run once a week, it makes me very happy. Unfortunately, I'm so busy at this point that it doesn't happen as often as I would like. But then there's another type of session where if you say, hey, I would like to change something specifically, you just talk to the practitioner or the facilitator and let them know what you want to work on. And usually, you just talk a little bit about that before you get there. And then when you get there, the thing I love about Access is when you get there, the person is there present with you as you are. And their question is, hey, what's up? How can I contribute? Or a question I love to ask is, if you could have anything out of this and change anything, what would it be? Because I want to know, what is the deepest, the widest, the biggest thing you can imagine that we can possibly change together? And so in certain of these sessions, it will be more verbal. Somebody will ask you questions, and what they'll do is part of the gift of having one of these sessions and being facilitated is the limitations that we are functioning from. We can't hear it when it comes out of our mouth. But somebody else can, because they're not living our lives. They're standing over here and they see the big red button and you say it, and they're like, oh, there, and so they'll ask you questions about it and help you change some of the things around it. And my first verbal processing session, I did it about money, and I wanted to change my money situation and my receiving, because lack of money is usually a lack of receiving. And I did the session, and 3 hours later, my chiropractic practice started filling up. And I was like, whoa, okay. And so the level that it works on is really the level of undoing our unconsciousness so that the miraculousness of our being can shine forth, because we're actually miraculous. And that sounds a bit airy-fairy if you're not living a life where that's showing up. In fact, it may be angering if you're not living a life where it's showing up. But the reason it's angering is because it's true and know it should be possible. And why the heck can't I seem to create it? So it's about getting us more in line with what's actually true and letting go of the crap that's not us, so that we can move forward and create what we desire.
Yes. So I think that you're right. Miracles can occur. And I say this a lot. Miracles definitely can occur, but sometimes we need to create little shifts in order to make that happen and to allow the magic to come in. So I absolutely love that you've touched on that, because I wholeheartedly agree.
Yes. And I think that's where being alive is truly wonderful, when little miracles and large miracles can show up for us. And I think we have way more ability and access for that than we probably ever acknowledged.
Yeah, definitely. I'd love to hear some transformational stories. I'm sure you've worked with an abundance of people in your time, and people that have experienced access consciousness and just had these impeccable transformations just like you did. Does anything stand out for you that you can share?
Oh goodness, there are so many. There was one lady that I worked with who had 4th stage liver cancer, and her friend asked if I would come and work on her when I was in Sweden. And normally I get a no in a case like that, but in this case I got a yes, because I just asked yes or no. And so I go there, and there's this woman who looks like she's about 70. She's got gray hair and this beautiful long hair, but it's kind of matted. She's been in bed a lot. She's wearing this white robish thing, and you can see the ascites in there, the inflammation, that's being caused because the liver's being stopped up. And it's so interesting because it was nothing like you would think at all. So I started speaking with her, and what I do, no matter what it is, it doesn't matter whether it's physical or otherwise, I look to see where the point of creation of what started this process in somebody's life, whether it's poverty or cancer in this case. And what I realized with her was when she was a young girl, she knew, like, she was one of these beautiful creatures who knew that beauty was the way of being alive and that the world was beautiful. And she had so many experiences from her family, et cetera, where that wasn't possible, that she had gotten to this point, and a few years before this got the liver cancer. And so we did the clearing statement that I talked about. I also do an energetic form of working with people that I call energetic synthesis of being. And I did that with her. And at one point, I put my hands right over and I asked her if I could put my hands on where the cancer was. Oh my goodness. And it makes me cry thinking about it now. And in contrast to the physical, which looked like this gnarly, yucky mass, yuck, 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 right? It was one of the most beautiful things I had ever experienced in my life. And I stood there crying, and she was lying down on the table crying. And we both just cried together. And it felt like the room was engulfed in beauty. I can't even begin to tell you. And one of the things I know with people who have cancer is they often choose that so they can get out in a particular way. And so I was just really hoping I gave her the biggest hug, and I said, you know what? I just wish you, whatever days you have left, I just hope they are filled with peace and beauty and joy. And she said, I'm sure they will be. 4 years later, I was in Stockholm again, and I was doing an event, and it had like 400 people. I was doing a book launch for Being You, Changing the World, and I'd never been around this many people before. This was years ago. And I was like, I was kind of freaking out. And at the break, there were lots of people. There was a hug line of probably 100 people. And I was like, oh my goodness, what do I do with this? Well, this beautiful lady, looked like she was about 35, with this long brown hair and these piercing, beautiful green eyes, comes up and gives me flowers and a card. And I looked at her and I was like, wow, I wonder who this is. Thank you. And my personal assistant came up to me afterwards as I was going to open the card. She said, do you know who that was? No, I've never seen her before in my life, because this lady just did a dig and dash, a hand and dash off, right? And she said, that was the lady with cancer you worked on 4 years ago. And I'm like, are you kidding? Because the lady literally looked 70 with grayish hair. And this woman she was in her 30s and just so alive. Oh. And the card was so beautiful. And that for me is one of the most beautiful experiences I've ever had. One of the most beautiful sessions I've ever had the honor to do.
Oh, I got goosebumps listening to that, and I was going to say, how does that make you feel? But it's obvious, you're obviously still feeling that emotion behind living your purpose in this way and being able to help people with such significant shifts in their lives back to health. Like that's just probably the best gift that you can receive from anyone, isn't it?
Truly. And you talk about gratitude, and for me, the gratitude for what we are capable of and what we can contribute to each other, because this woman was willing to receive this miraculousness of, okay, I knew this was possible. I gave up on it, but you know what? I'm going to go there again. Like, I'm going to have this as my life. I'd be just, wow.
You've just an abundance of information and a wealth of knowledge and so many tools that you can give us. You've got your website, which we'll link to the show notes. You've got books, The Body Whisperer, Return to Being a Gentleman. There's endless resources that you can provide to people. And if you're listening to this and this conversation is not enough, and maybe it's tip of an iceberg of positive change that you want to bring into your life, Dr. Dain Heer has so many resources available on his website. I will actually add a free link to something that Dr. Dain Heer has that we can guide you to as well, to delve deeper into his work. And yeah, if we want to go to an Access Consciousness session, they're all around the world, right?
Yes, they are. And, choose your own adventure.
Yeah.
We have different subjects. There will be shorter classes, longer classes. And if you're interested, if you're one of those people who's like, no, I would like to become as conscious as I can,
Yep.
I would highly suggest starting with the bars and then seeing what you want to do from there. But this really is about you getting to step into your knowing and follow your own path on where you would like to go.
So wonderful. Now, I cannot end without asking you this question, and I ask everyone on the podcast, what is something that you heard that you could not unhear in the course of your life that maybe stopped you in your tracks, created positive change within you, a conversation, a quote, a book, something that really shifted the way that you saw the world?
Wow. Okay, two things. The first one is humorous. And for me, that seems to be the place I always go first. And that was that apparently squirrels misplace 80% of the nuts that they hide. What? So that's,
I love this.
A lot of people, when they have a depth and a breadth, like it's just the most beautiful moment. It's like it gets serious and significant. For me, it just is more reasons to look for joy.
I love that so much. That's nothing that we've heard on this show before. I can tell you that.
You're welcome. I'm so honored to provide that. And the other one is that you have the capacity to create miracles by your very choice, and that we are miraculous creatures walking on this planet. And it sounds so simple, but when I heard that the first time, it felt like my whole brain exploded, because I always knew it should be true, and I always wanted it to be that way. And it had such the ring of truth that we are miraculous and we have the ability to create anything we desire. And then the furtherance to that was, look around at this world and see what you see now. This is less than 1,000th of what it can be. And then I was like, I'm in, let's do this thing.
Possibilities are endless.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Dr. Dain Heer, for joining us on this podcast and sharing so many things you can't unhear. At many points during this conversation, I wanted to grab my pen and write notes, but we're recording it, so I'll do that as I listen back. But thank you so much. Please continue on this amazing mission of yours to bring more lightness into the world, and we look forward to whatever is coming up next in your realm.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the show. What did you think? And what did you feel? Let us know by leaving me a message on the Things You Can't Unhear Instagram community page. And if you can, give us some ratings love on your favorite listening platform.